Hello and welcome to another episode of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. I am Rico, and I'd like to remind everyone that I am not a doctor, I am not a therapist, and I'm not a medical professional in any way, just a regular person trying to navigate through life and trying to navigate what's going on in here. It's better, but it's still a mess. I'd like to take this opportunity to take this video in a different direction, more or less. I mean, I'm still talking about my life and experiences, but I want to make a few videos where I talk about each one of the jobs that I've had in the past a little more in detail. The way these jobs affected me, the way the people affected me, the way my childhood trauma affected my behavior. It influenced the way I dealt with things and dealt with people and all of it. And quite honestly, these jobs just added to the already existing trauma that I've gone through. They just didn't make things better. They just kind of sort of made things worse. But my very first job ever, I was still in high school. I was 16. My parents got me a small car, this little green. I shouldn't say they got me a car. They got my sisters a car, and then my sisters didn't want it anymore, so it was handed down to me. So I got a hand-me-down car, but it was a car. And having a car meant having expenses. My parents didn't want to pay for any of it. So they told me, if you're going to drive, you're going to pay for your own gas, you're going to pay for your own insurance, blah, 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 and you're going to have to get a job. So the very first job I got was at the body shop where my dad worked and my older brother. I should have known better, but I was a 16-year-old kid, so I didn't know. I was just excited to have some extra money in my pocket. And pretty much the reason they wanted me to go out and get a job was so they could charge me rent. Now they could make me pay for the food that I'm eating. Now they can make me pay for the utilities I'm using. Like I wasn't, worthy of any of that. They made me feel like I was just a mooch for all those years as a child because they had to buy me clothes and they had to buy me food. I had to turn the lights on, so I wasted their electricity. I had to take showers, so I wasted their water. That's how they made me feel. That's how they made me feel. And them forcing me to get a job meant that they could take more money. They could take money from me now. You're going to pay for your food. You're going to pay for utility. You're going to pay rent. I had to pay rent to live in my parents' house. When I was 16, I had to pay them rent. Not to mention when I would get paid, my mom would take probably half of my I would cash it, and she would take half of it and put it in an envelope in her room and would keep it for me. So if I wanted to spend money on anything, I had to get permission from my mom to spend my own money. I had to beg for stuff. And it was my money. But nah, she would always tell me, you're just going to spend it all. You're just going to spend it all. You don't know. Instead of teaching me how to save money, instead of teaching me how to open a bank account, instead of teaching me how to open a savings account, none of that. They just assumed that I was dumb and stupid and I was just going to spend it all. So she would just take it. And working with my dad and my brother, it was quite honestly one of the worst experiences of my life. Again, I have plenty of worst experiences, so this is really no surprise, especially with those two. And the boss, the owner, he was no better. He was even slimier and more rude and had a bigger ego because he was an owner, blah, 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 blah. He would talk down to me all the time, and my dad would just let it happen. Never once did he stand up for me or, ever. In fact, he would get mad at me for giving them a reason to talk to me like crap. Like it was my fault that they talked to me that way. But I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back with a little more of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Welcome back to This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. This video is touching down on the topic of my first job. And I want to do a series of all of the jobs I've done a little more in depth. I don't think I really mentioned them all that much. I've mentioned them a little bit, but now I'm going to kind of dive deep into my experience with those jobs, one at a time. Now, I am talking about my first job ever, where I worked in a stupid, smelly, dusty, dirty body shop with my dad and my older brother, because I started driving my car and I had to pay for my own stuff and I had to earn my keep. I had to work. I still had to do stuff around the house. I still had to cut the grass. I still had to clean whenever they wanted. You know, there was no free rides. I guess I had mooched long enough. And so working at this shop, I was the cleanup boy. Basically, everyone's little bitch. Because that's how they treated me. I would sweep. I would pick up the tools. I would organize stuff. I would clean the little break room. I would clean the bathroom, take out the trash. Sometimes he would have me use his pickup truck to get a bunch of scrap parts out back and load them up and take them to the dump. Stuff like that. But no matter what I did, it was never good enough for anyone. And this was the beginning. This was the start of nothing being good enough. If the boss said something to me, and he did all the time, he did it as often as he could. Never had a good thing to say. He always talked smack to me. And then my dad would get mad at me for, giving him a reason to talk smack about me. Never stood up for me, never defended his own child. He would just let it happen. In fact, boss would say, "Hey, he's blah, blah, blah." And then my dad would just nod and agree. And it was discouraging. And then I had my older brother doing the same thing. Sometimes I would ask him a question because I didn't know. When you don't know something, you ask questions. And I would ask him something, and he would respond with, "I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that." Because, again, I should just know all this stuff. I should know all the stuff that they know. They're not going to teach me any of it. They just expected me to know. And when I asked questions, they made me feel stupid. They made me feel like I wasn't worthy to even talk to them or be around them. They had their egos, and they felt like they were just on top of the world, and they knew everything about fixing cars, and they knew blah, blah, blah. And they felt superior for it. They had that superiority complex, big time. And they all treated me like garbage. All of them. No matter what I did. No matter what I did. It was the same thing all over again. Except now it's in a work environment. They abused me for not knowing stuff. They abused me for being a little bit different. They always made fun of me because I started growing my hair out. And just made me feel like I was not even worthy of existing at all. I didn't care about this garbage occupation. My dad took my older brother when he was young to the shop. My older brother absorbed all of it and started to do the same work. Followed in my dad's footsteps. And my dad loved that. He absolutely loved that. That's why he kept my older brother on that pedestal, because he followed in his footsteps. He was an alcoholic like his dad. He was a auto body repairman like his dad. He had a stupid garbage attitude about everything and everyone, just like his dad. And I wasn't interested in any of that at all. And he hated me for it. He hated me because I didn't want to fix cars, because I didn't want to be in this stupid shop. He hated me for it. He held it all against me, never once considering who I am at all. But I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with a little more of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Welcome back to This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. I'm on the topic of work. I want to do a little mini series of talking about the different jobs that I've had over my life and how they've affected me, and not to mention how my past trauma influenced my reactions and my behaviors and my interactions with people. And I was going to try to do one episode on my first job, but I don't really have much more to say about it, except that I'm glad I'm glad I got away from there. I want to take this opportunity to talk about the second job that I had right after working with my dad. Now, this place happened to be right next door to the shop where we were working, where I was working with him. And it was a moving company, but they did recycling inside the warehouse. Like at one time, they would buy recycling from the public. People would come in, we would weigh either the glass or the aluminum or the paper, and then we would pay them for it, whatever the going rate was. And they needed help. They came and they offered me the job because they just needed somebody to work in the warehouse. And it was a slight pay raise. And I was so excited to get away from my dad and my brother. So excited. Now, the fact that we were next door meant that he could still abuse me whenever, I was around. But at least I didn't have to be in the same building with him. At least I could go inside and I could go bale cardboard, or I could go grind plastic, break glass. They had glass in these big giant bins, and we would have the clear and the brown and the green. And sometimes we got this big metal bar and we would just smash the glass to make room. And, pay was better. It was next door. It was still like the same distance from the house, which was not that far. It was really close. And like I said, my dad still could treat me like crap, but it was at the very least less frequent. At least I could get away a little bit. Now, these new bosses, it was two brothers that were the owners. They were really cool and nice at first. But it didn't take long for those true colors to come out at all. It didn't take long for their true intentions and feelings to expose themselves. They also had the superiority complex, which I guess goes with being a business owner. I guess. I don't know. I've never owned a business and I've never treated anyone like this, but you go work for somebody, they automatically assume that you're beneath them. They automatically assume that they're smarter than you. They automatically assume that they are more experienced and just more intelligent. Everything. No matter what it was, they loved blaming us for stuff. Now, I will say that when I worked there, my younger brother came and worked there. And it was okay, but not really, because he was still a little jerk. He was always a little jerk. But they loved blaming me for the most trivial of things. Like I would use a utility knife to cut cardboard. And after a while, blades get dull. That's just how it goes. But instead of, just putting another blade in there, the one boss would just blame me for it and would just make up stuff. It's because you cut it on the floor and the concrete is making the blade go dull. And I wasn't doing that at all. He just assumed I was. He just assumed I was stupid and was doing it that way, so that way he could be mad about it. And after a while, he turned out to be a guy that was just mad about everything. The other brother was kind of cool, but when he would get mad about something, then he would just blow up and yell at everyone that he could that was around him because he could. They both treated everyone like garbage because they could. Another common theme. But I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back with a little more of This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Welcome back to This is Rico trying to heal my inner child. Getting back to the topic of work, more specifically, a little more into detail about the jobs that I had. Well, the first part of this video, I talked about working in the stupid body shop with my dad. And now I'm talking about working for the moving company that did recycling that was right next door. And like I mentioned before, things were cool for a little bit. They were okay. And then true colors showed themselves. Started to treat everyone like garbage after a little while. I guess they let you get situated and get comfortable, and then they bring out the big guns. Another set of control freaks that just wanted to expect perfection for what I considered was slave wages. They wanted to keep the pay low, but they expected you to just be perfect. They wanted the black tie experience, but they only wanted to pay for cut-off jean shorts, And they took every opportunity they had, every opportunity to tell me I was dumb, to tell all of us we were dumb. And it was just superiority complex to the extreme, because their name was on the trucks and their name was on the front of the building. So they not only thought that they were better than everybody, but they pretty much let you know. They let you know. If I did a good job, nobody said anything. And I always did. I did a good job as much as I could. Never said anything. But if I messed something up, even something very trivial, they would just blow up. They would make me feel stupid. They would make me feel like I was unworthy. They would make me feel like I wasn't worthy of existing. It was always something. It was always something that they were mad about, always something that they just perceived as my fault, even when it wasn't. And again, I'm a kid. I don't know how to deal with these things. I don't know how to deal with conflict. Try to keep the peace. Try to keep quiet. Try to keep to myself. Try to keep out of sight. And that didn't work. They just would come look for me. And before long, I started working on the moving trucks. I got out of the warehouse and it was one of the crew, and I would go out on jobs. And I hoped that things would be different. And they were different because you got to go somewhere different every time. And every moving job was a different experience. But things just stayed the same. Things remained the same. They just expected perfection. And then whenever they would get frustrated about anything, they would just take it out on all of us, take it out on me. I stayed there for 4 years. I don't know why. Again, I didn't know how to deal with these things. I didn't know how to deal with confrontations. So I would just shut up and just deal with it and let them treat me like crap. It was 4 years too long. In fact, we did a job one time. They wouldn't let us wear shorts in the summertime. I don't know why. I think it was their control freak, kind of thing. Well, they would just tell us, no, you can't wear shorts. No, because we say so. And we were doing this job, and I was carrying a big stack of boxes, and the sidewalk was all cracked and uneven. And I was walking to the truck, and I didn't see where it was part of the sidewalk was sticking up, and I tripped on it, and I fell on both knees real hard, and I tore both of them open. Both of my knees got torn open. I got scar tissue all over both the front of my knees. And when I told them that, it seriously, it tore my jeans, and then it ripped my skin. And when I told them that, they just scoffed and brushed it off. They were like, well, we can't do anything until this job is done. And they let me finish that job, bleeding, hurt. And I just kept going. I kept going because I thought, well, I guess I can't do anything until we're done. So we better hurry up and get it done. So I had to work in pain. I had to work with my knees torn open. And looking back, that was such a horrible experience for someone, for anyone. I wouldn't expect someone to just keep working if they were hurt like that. I mean, at the very least, they should have had a first aid kit, which they didn't for some stupid reason. They just let me suffer. They just let me suffer and just kept telling me, well, the faster we get this done, then the faster you can take care of your knees. And just let me suffer. And that's what life was like a lot for me. When I would suffer, those around me didn't care, and they would just let me suffer. And I would tell them I was suffering, and they didn't care. And, things just got worse and worse until, thankfully, I got in a car accident and got whiplash, and I couldn't move the furniture because I was hurt, and I had to take some time off. During that time off, I decided I wasn't going to go back. I tried to find work somewhere else. And I did find some work somewhere else, but that is for another episode. But when you're a kid and you don't know how to deal with confrontation, when you don't know how to deal with conflict, when you don't know how to stand up for yourself, when you don't know how to defend yourself, it's extremely exhausting and frustrating and discouraging. Never an encouraging word. The only time I ever heard from anyone was when they wanted to criticize or degrade me, make me feel like I just wasn't good enough. And they all did it. They all did it. I guess it makes them feel good about themselves. I guess. I don't know. I could never see myself treating someone like that just to boost my own ego. But they did. All of them. All of them. Make themselves feel like big men by tearing somebody else down, especially someone that doesn't even know how to defend themselves. And it just got worse and worse. I was so glad to get out of there. I really was. Now, I will give a little spoiler. I do go back to that company and later on in my life, and things are a little better, but not much. But I just couldn't believe that I had endured what I did. I couldn't believe I stayed there for as long as I did. But I did. I just thought again that there was nothing better for me. There was nothing else for me. This was it. This is good enough, I guess. And I just had to deal with it. I'll look back and see how wrong I was when I was thinking those things. I was totally capable of going somewhere else and doing something else. I just didn't think so because I let them make me believe that I wasn't good enough for anything else. I wasn't even good enough for that. So it was just more bricks in the wall, a little more for the trauma, a little more material for these videos. But I'm going to conclude this video here because, again, I'm going a little bit longer than usual because I have a lot to say, I guess. It's hard to get my words into this little time frame, so I had to extend the ending a little bit. But I will say that I am Rico, and I thank you all for your support. I appreciate and love you all. Please like, share, subscribe as much as you can. We are not alone, and we're going to get through this, all of us. We have to take care of each other because no one else is going to do it. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and I will be back very, very soon with another episode of This is Rico Trying to Heal My Inner Child. Thank you.